Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Today we got some top position battles.
Let's do it.
Welcome to the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Here's your host, Morgan Colby and Rick Lemon.
What's going on, everybody?
What's up?
I remember I was listening to an old podcast because I wanted to see how we did on our breakouts episode last year.
Okay.
Just to see what our hit rate was.
Was it good?
No.
I don't remember.
I don't know. We chose some weird busts, breakouts. Like we had Dante Pettis as a breakout.
You know what?
Hello?
Opportunity.
You cut out for a second.
Hello?
Can you say that again?
Oh. I just said that wasn't a bad one last year because he had a lot of opportunity.
Yeah, and then he completely crapped himself.
He did, yeah.
I can't remember the other ones, but we did get Aaron Jones right.
We had some busts that we got right, I know, like Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, that's true.
So we were big Philip Lindsay.
But I was listening to that show to get to my anecdotal story, and back then I screamed into the microphone like hello to enter the show or something ridiculous like that. Thinking back on that, probably not the best idea to blow people's eardrums out when you start the show.
You try to bring that back? Or?
Heck no. My name is Morgan Colby. I got Rick Lemon with me. As always, what's going on, Rick?
What's up?
We got some stuff to get to in this episode. We're going to talk about some positional battles, players who are fighting for specific roster roles and how it pertains to your fantasy team going into 2020. So we're gonna do that. Before we do that, check out our website, thefantasychampions.com. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at the FF Champs on Twitter, at the Fantasy Champions on Instagram. And then you can like us at facebook.com/the Fantasy Champions. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other podcast platform, please go down and leave a review. You can also subscribe. Subscribing helps us a lot because it gets us in front of more people. And the more people we get in front of, the more stuff we can do. And the more stuff we can do, the more content we can bring to you. And the more content we can bring to you, the more championships you win. So please subscribe, leave a review, and share this podcast with your friends. If you're watching on YouTube, same thing. Subscribe. Click the bell for notifications. You'll get notifications. Subscribing is not enough anymore for the YouTube algorithm. It's just not. You have to click the bell for notifications. Like and then leave down below a comment of a player or a position battle that you are interested in this year to see what happens.
Yeah, let us know if we missed something.
Yeah,
for one of the battles.
Well, we for sure missed something. We're just talking about our favorite ones.
Yeah.
Also, we have our draft guide. The orders for the draft guide start at $25. It is currently live, and you have 2 weeks to buy it and use it before the season starts. It has full rankings, breakouts, busts, player draft values, player breakdowns, and so much more. If you, I forgot to take that out of the show. The listener league is closed. We might have some spots to give away, but another topic for another day. And then be sure to tell your friends about our draft guide. So let's jump right into. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say there's been some people that aren't entered in both listener league that got entered, so we might have something open up.
Yeah. Definitely. People are ignoring my emails.
I don't blame them.
Don't ignore if you're listening to this podcast, check your emails. And then if you don't have an email from us, email us at thefantasychampion@gmail.com and we will get back to you with a listener league spot. First come, first serve. Let's jump right into positional battles for the 2020 fantasy football season. Hardman versus Sammy Watkins for the wide receiver 2 job in Kansas City. Now, me and Rick have been preaching to you to draft Hardman for a majority of the offseason. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Would I be advanced in saying that?
Big Mecole Hardman fans.
Yes, so we love Mecole Hardman. Obviously, he's Tyreek Hill mini, light. I don't know what you want to call him.
Esque.
He's the Tyreek Hill app with ads.
Wow, that's a great tweet.
So Mecole Hardman's the Tyreek Hill app with ads. So he obviously, I think, is the guy that should win the job. But I'm gonna pop into Roto World, our good friends at Roto World, for some sports news just to see where that battle is going. Obviously, they like Mecole Hardman. There have been rumors at the draft that the Kansas City Chiefs were going to trade Sammy Watkins away at some point. He still hasn't been traded. I've been one to think that he might be cut. But when this man is on the field and he's playing as the wide receiver too, he's actually been really good for the Chiefs and been one of Mahomes' favorite options in the offense. The key thing here is him staying on the field. So, in terms of what is capable for Sammy Watkins, like if he plays the full season as the wide receiver too, would you be interested in like drafting him and having him on your team?
Oh yeah, I would.
So, yeah, I mean, that's like, and I was thinking, there was a time where I was mock drafting and taking Sammy Watkins in the 10th round every time. Because last year in 14 games, he had 90 targets, 52 receptions. He had a decent amount of target share.
Also missed a lot of time, though.
That's true. Very true.
Which created a lot of opportunity for Watkins.
So,
especially for 1 week.
Right. So, there has been rumors also floating around that Sammy Watkins is frustrated with the Chiefs because he's not getting the opportunity that he wants, but that he also he wants to win. Mm-hmm. So he's not complaining, essentially. He said on August 13th, that he understands that his numbers might not be what he wants them to be in 2020, which would lead me to believe that a Mecole Hardman is overtaking him as the wide receiver too. He also had a groin injury, but he did return to practice. So as far as Sammy Watkins is concerned, I would think that he's definitely a guy that is not going to win this job. I think it's most likely going to be Mecole Hardman. What are the chances you think that Sammy Watkins is going to win this job as I pull up Mecole Hardman's numbers just to get some information on him?
It is Sammy Watkins' job, obviously, from last year. Hardman is the young player, though. He's going into year 2. He's not a rookie anymore. So I agree with you. I think Hardman will win. But even if Watkins wins the job, I mean, how long is that going to last? Right. Like, I think Mecole Hardman can easily take the job during the season at any point. Mm-hmm. I think the Chiefs could cut Sammy Watkins, like you said, although I don't know if that's going to happen. I think it's more likely that they would trade Sammy Watkins to a wide receiver needy team like a Green Bay Packers. Mm-hmm. But even if he stayed on the team, I mean, Sammy Watkins has gotten hurt pretty much every year of his career, other than I think his rookie season. So yeah, he's usually a player that has struggled with injuries, and even when he's healthy, he disappears sometimes too. Like I wouldn't be betting money on Sammy Watkins this year.
So there was a report too in April that said that Sammy Watkins, I don't know if we talked about this on the show in April, but he restructured his contract to save $5 million in cap space for the Kansas City Chiefs, presumably to try to get Patrick Mahomes a huge contract, which he did. But I think essentially what this report is saying back in April is that it keeps Sammy Watkins entrenched as the team's starting slot receiver for another year. Sophomore speedster Mecole Hardman's breakout will likely have to wait, since this reshuffling ensures 10 to 11 starters. So 10 of 11 starters returning from the Super Bowl winning offense. So essentially what this particular report said in April is that they think that Sammy Watkins is going to be the starting guy because he restructured his contract essentially. So, I mean, that's the information that we have on these two. I think that you're right with the Sammy Watkins situation. He gets hurt regularly. It's the first thing. Not that you want to like project injury onto Sammy Watkins, but he does get hurt regularly, which opens up opportunity for Mecole Hardman, which is essentially what happened last year with Tyreek Hill getting hurt. The only concern that I kind of have with Tyreek Hill is with Mecole Hardman is that I don't know if Sammy Watkins, like, do you think Mecole Hardman would be a slot receiver if Sammy Watkins were to get cut or traded or leave in some capacity or get hurt. Like, he's just going to get, like, would he get more opportunity on the outside? Because he literally plays the same role as Tyreek Hill.
Yeah, I think he'd probably get more.
He's just
on the outside.
He's just a field stretcher. So, I mean, for me,
but he's perfect for the Chiefs. But
yeah, well, for sure. See, that's the thing with Mecole Hardman is that even if he doesn't get 100 targets this year, he's going to have like some ridiculous games. Mm-hmm. And it's like, if you really desperately need a play, you know what I mean? Like, you don't have a wide receiver for the week. I would rather play Mecole Hardman than pick somebody up off the waiver wire and just cross your fingers that he doesn't get one target for 7 yards. So, I mean, I think Mecole Hardman at some point is going to usurp. I'm trying not to sneeze. Oh, I held that in. I think he's going to usurp, if that's the right word to use there, Sammy Watkins as the wide receiver 2 on the Kansas City Chiefs, which is obviously valuable for fantasy owners. So that's why I would buy Mecole Hardman at some point. I think he's talented. He's fast. He's, you know, I don't want to say he's better than Sammy Watkins. I mean, is it okay to say that? Am I castrated?
I mean, Sammy Watkins is pretty solid.
He's only 26 too, which is ridiculous. Sammy Watkins.
He's a talented player. He's just never really put it together.
Yeah, and he also feels like this guy that's been stuck on a bad offense, but he just hasn't. And
no,
so it's like,
it's a weird player.
Yeah, very weird player. But I don't know if he fits into what Kansas City wants to do. You know what I mean? Because those over the middle slant kind of routes that he runs are overtaken by Kelsey. Because Kelsey essentially just is a slot receiver at tight end. You know, and it's like, that's the problem that you have with Sammy Watkins being valuable. So I would much rather have in fantasy football the upside of Mecole Hardman with the breakout potential. But I think Mecole Hardman is definitely going to win the job at some point. If not in training camp, at some point in the season.
Yeah.
Now, if you had to put your bets, hedge your bets on who's the starter week 1, who are you choosing?
Sammy Watkins. It's gross, but
I would say Sammy Watkins too.
I think by week 3 or 4, though, it'll be Hardman.
Okay, I would agree with that. The next one, this should be an interesting one because you like one player specifically better than I like one player. I think both of these guys are actually really gross, and I realized that this week.
Yeah,
when you get to a certain point in the regular season, after you get a fantasy team and you have one together, you're like, okay, the guys we've been arguing about for months really have no real reality.
This is one of those situations. I think.
So Joshua Kelly and Justin Jackson are currently, I'll tell you, this is a weird backfield, my friend. There's a lot of conflicting reports on these two guys, but Justin Jackson and Joshua Kelly are fighting for the second role behind Austin Eckler. Now, I'll say that we've seen guys perform well in Los Angeles. Like, we've seen two running backs have success in Los Angeles with Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler. And I don't think that Eckler is going to come in and just be I think he's going to get all of the pass catching work, which is going to be, plus some because he's always had the pass catching work. And he's probably going to get 200 carries. So he's going to have a lot of work in this offense, but I don't think he's going to be a guy that gets over 250, 260, 270 carries. So in this Chargers offense, that means the second running back is kind of valuable. I don't know. I feel like he's kind of
deep in leagues, but and a very good handcuff as well. Yeah. Underrated handcuff.
Right. So now I'm kind of tossing and turning a little bit on Justin Jackson. Joshua Kelly's a rookie, 4th round pick, I believe. And Justin Jackson, he was a 7th round pick in 2018. He's not a bad running back. Last year I picked him up and he had he had some interesting games. I wouldn't say they're good, but they were interesting. He's not a bad running back. Last year he averaged 6.9 yards per carry, which is, only, I don't know how many rushes he had, but I'm assuming it's not a lot, but he had 200 rushes last year, 9 receptions, 22 receiving yards. So he's not a bad running back. And I think he can win the job, but essentially some of the reports coming out really fast are that So I'll take it. I'll take it back to June. So the Chargers said on June 15th that the Justin Jackson's leash won't be long as the team's number 2 back. That he would not have the opportunity if he wasn't working hard or being successful. Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson both received. This happened on August 18th. Austin Eckler and Justin Jackson both received first team reps during Chargers in-house scrimmages. So this was just 10 days ago or 8 days ago, somewhere around that.
Beginning of camp, though.
Say it again?
Is it closer to the beginning of camp?
Yeah. So Justin Jackson had gotten first team reps, and it was looking like this guy was going to be, the second running back on the team. And then the Orange County Register believes that Joshua Kelly, the running back, might have the edge for the number 2 role. There has also been reports that Justin Jackson has the edge for the number 2 role. So essentially at this point, we don't know who's going to be number 2. For me, this is what I'll say. I think Justin Jackson's going to be the number 2 guy. And that's why I would take Justin Jackson later in drafts than I would Joshua Kelly. I would rather have Justin Jackson. And the reason why is because Josh Kelly is a rookie running back in a COVID year with no preseason games. And it's like, even if he wins that number 2 role, I don't think he'll have it for long. So, this Orange County Register report, whatever it is, whoever this person is, so kind of a strange freaking report. But anyway, I disagree with this report, and I feel like Justin Jackson's probably going to get the starting role, or the RB2 role on that team. So I think it's safe to say that. I would not be surprised if Josh Kelly takes over at some point in the season over Justin Jackson, just because he's a 4th round pick and he's probably more talented and all these other things, right? Yeah. But he has more upside, and I like that about Kelly. But if you need something early in the season, Justin Jackson is going to be able to come in and probably provide a base floor of 8 to 10 rushing attempts and maybe 1 to 2 targets, which would equal 1 catch a game. So he provides a small floor that you could probably utilize him in your flex if you had to, if somebody got hurt. So I think that the if you drafted either of these guys later in your drafts, or you are going to draft one of these guys, I don't think you have a problem with either one of them. But I would just take Justin Jackson over Josh Kelly.
For me, I'd probably take Josh Kelly over Justin Jackson. We do kind of disagree on this one, but honestly, it's not really a backfield that I'm crazy about investing in anyway.
Yeah.
I don't have crazy strong opinions on this, but the reason I would take Joshua Kelly is sort of the reasons why you wouldn't, because he is a rookie, and I do think he's more talented than Justin Jackson. He was the 4th round pick versus Justin Jackson being a 7th round pick. Justin Jackson has had his chances. He's not been bad. He's not a bad player. But I think Joshua Kelly has more upside, which I'd rather take later in the drafts. I mean, you look at their metrics, on Player Profile, or Josh Kelly's compared to Sony Michel. Justin Jackson's more of a Shane Vereen. Their 40-yard dashes were very similar, but Joshua Kelly's a little bit faster, and he also has 20 pounds than Justin Jackson, so he's kind of a bigger, slightly faster player. I mean, those are all just metrics, though. I mean, on the field, we haven't really seen Joshua Kelly. I think he was solid in college. I just think, Justin Jackson might start the year. Week 1, he might be the RB2 on the Chargers, but I think at least halfway through the season, that'll be Joshua Kelly's job. Yeah. When they invested in him, and I've heard they liked him. I mean, what was the report that said Joshua Kelly was? There was one report that said Joshua Kelly was looking really good that you said you saw. Yeah. I've seen one from with the firstpick.com. It's a fan side, so it's not really an incredibly reliable source at all. But they wrote an article saying how Josh Kelly has the opportunity to have a massive role in year 1. Yeah, and that they think that he's gonna take over the spot. So, I mean, there are mixed reports because I have seen some positive things about Josh Kelly. It's a very interesting backfield. It's a good one to watch, but for me, I'd rather take the upside of Josh Kelly. Yeah,
I mean, I think that a lot of people would, especially later in the draft. It really, at this point, this conversation is similar to Bryce Love or Antonio Gibson, which
it's
we're not going
less,
to talk about.
It's less though of that.
Yeah,
because
right.
at least they might be the starter.
Right.
But
so,
they might get more work
I do think whoever gets the second job in Los Angeles is going to be valuable in some way. Because, like I said, Austin Eckler can't carry the ball all 400-something times that this team is going to do. And I'm assuming that they're going to run the football a little bit more this year just because of the fact that, Tyrod Taylor is the quarterback and or Justin Herbert's the quarterback. So it's like, if that's the situation that you're running into, they're not going to run the football, 100% of the time. And so I feel like when you're talking about the Los Angeles Chargers and their opportunity as a team, I feel like Justin Jackson or Joshua Kelly, whoever gets that secondary role, is going to have some opportunity in this offense to have success. So we'll see what happens with that. But who do you think wins week one? Who's going to be the number 2 guy?
I think week one it'll be Justin Jackson, but similar to the Sammy Watkins thing, I think during the season Joshua Kelly will take over that spot.
I think it will be Justin Jackson as well. This clusterfuck of a backfield, the Los Angeles Rams. I'm not even going to reference a competition at all. Because you have John Kelly, Malcolm Brown, Cam Akers, and Daryl Henderson. I don't think John Kelly's going to get one snap this year.
No, I think he will, but it won't be like he's going to be. It won't be anything useful.
This is going to be a split between Akers and Henderson and Malcolm Brown. And so the question is, traditionally, in Sean McVay's offense, we've seen a feature running back. Like they always have one guy running the football. RBBCs are not really his thing. So he might just be changing the way he's playing and trying to get into the RBBC game. I don't know. I mean, obviously that's what he wants to do, but I would not be surprised if the Rams are going in a direction of, we're going to play Malcolm Brown, Cam Akers, and Daryl Henderson until one of these guys does something Todd Gurley did and we can start them. So I feel like that's what's going to end up happening for them. But in the short term, you're just you're ending up with a really, like, this is probably one of my least favorite, least bought into backfields in the NFL.
Yep.
Outside of Washington. So I think for me, like when you talk about what's going on here, there's a lot of information. So I'm just going to spit it all out now and then we can talk about it. So Daryl Henderson, obviously the guy that a lot of people think is going to, probably be the starter week one. He suffered a mild hamstring and hamstring injury. I think it was last week, but the team hopes to have him back week one. He's been struggling. Like I said, hamstring injuries are the worst because those are the ones that linger. And guys like AJ Green have those. There's a lot of players. Deontay Johnson, I believe, had some form of a hamstring injury. So it's like those things are going to linger in onto the season. Sometimes they go away, sometimes they don't. It's a weird injury. So that's something you got to watch with Daryl Henderson. I feel like, what they expected and anticipated Daryl Henderson to be last year when they drafted him with their 3rd round pick. He didn't really turn into that. And there was a lot of people that liked Daryl Henderson. They were like, this guy's going to be legit. He's going to be really good. He really did not have a great season. He wasn't really, really good pass catching. And I think that had a lot to do with the terrible offensive line play, to be honest with you. But Malcolm Brown outpaced him and outplayed him a lot. But they've been saying that Daryl Henderson's been taking the first team reps and all of that stuff, like
he was
generally speaking, before he got injured. And so the guy behind him right now, from what it looks like, is Henderson's the 1, Akers is the 2, Malcolm Brown's the 3. So I would not be surprised if Malcolm Brown ends up on the bottom end of that stick. So let's just make this about Cam Akers and Daryl Henderson. Cam Akers came in, and they're essentially saying now he's going to get he's been getting the first team reps, and he's been doing pretty well with the first team reps, is what I've been hearing. But they're saying that he is going to, generally speaking, get a fairly even split in the beginning of the season with Henderson. So I feel like it's obviously going to be a split RBBC between the two guys. Now, what round was Cam Akers taken in? The second? I always get this wrong.
Second round, 20th pick.
So you say that like I'm supposed to know that. You're like, second round, 20th pick. You freaking
I was looking at it. So
no, I literally had it right in front of me, so I was staring at it anyway. But so Cam Akers, second round, he, for me, I think when you look at him, I feel like he should be the guy for them.
Sure.
That would be the person that I would take to be the guy. I do like Henderson, and I think they're going to use Henderson, but it's really just sitting here and it's splitting hairs. Like, you're looking at these two guys. I think if you're taking, see, here's my problem. I don't know if we asked this question in our this or that segment. I don't know if we've done this one yet, but Cam Akers or Daryl Henderson.
Yeah.
The problem for me is that Cam Akers is a 6th round pick right now. And he's getting way overdrafted for a team
fifth
that's...
round. I've seen him 5th. I mean, he's starting to move up to almost the 5th round.
This is like... I don't like people who draft Jonathan Taylor in the 3rd round. But you know what? I would way draft Jonathan Taylor in the 3rd round than Cam Akers in the 6th or 5th.
Me too.
Please don't do that. Like, that is a surefire way to lose your fantasy league, is drafting Cam Akers in the 5th or 6th round. Like, that's just bad. Daryl Henderson's going in the 10th or 11th round. Even though he's dealing with the hamstring injuries, like, I feel like that's a way better, like, shot to take than it is to go after Cam Akers. You know what I mean?
I do think by the end of the year, Akers might have more carries.
Yeah.
But the thing is, this is going to be split up 3 ways. I mean, there's going to be some weeks where Akers is going to be really good. There's going to be some weeks where Daryl Henderson's going to get more carries. There's going to be some weeks where Malcolm Brown gets 15 carries, and you go, what? I mean, it's going to be gross. Mean, Akers in Dynasty, I think, is better suited than he is in redraft. And I think people are just getting the hype. The only way I would draft Akers semi early at all is if you just, like, all the running backs are gone, you're in the 7th round, and he's still there, and, like, you just desperately need a running back, so you take a flyer on Cam Akers for the potential upside that he has.
That's what he used to be.
Right. But now you're drafting him as, like, a regular too. It's a little crazy, but that's the only time I think it's fine drafting Cam Akers that early, is if you just like you just desperately need an RB2 and you would rather take the chance on him than, like, a safe bet, like a James White type thing.
Fair enough.
At that point in the draft. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm with you. I don't really like anybody on the Rams. I did draft Daryl Henderson in our home league in, like, the 12th round because it was just a flyer. I ended up cutting him for Matt Breida though, but
me finding ways to freaking pick him up and then going, never mind.
Yeah. So he's not, like, I think Henderson would have been the starting back week 1, but now because of the injury, I'm not sure.
Yeah,
Akers might end up being the starter week 1, but I don't know how much he's going to get, how much work he's actually going to get in week 1. I mean, do you think Cam Akers will get, like, 200 carries this year?
No.
I don't think he will.
I don't think he will either.
Yeah, it's just too many.
I don't remember how many carries they had last year in that backfield, but if it was, like, around 400. I can
pull it up.
If it was around 400, then I could see a pretty, like, it's probably going to be like 160 with the rest going to, like, Malcolm Brown and John Kelly. But here's my thing, like, with Daryl Henderson is I feel like it's really, I don't think that they're looking at Cam Akers and going, we drafted him with pick 2, we picked him with a 52nd pick in the 2nd round. You know what I mean? Like, I don't think they're looking at him going, like, it's essentially a 3rd round pick. So it's like, I don't think they're looking at him going, like, oh, the draft capital that we used to draft Cam Akers, overlooks Daryl Henderson so much. I honestly think that whoever does better is going to be the starting running back for this team.
Yeah.
And I feel like
it could be Akers, but I
if
think
Henderson comes out week 1 and rushes for 120, gets 120 all-purpose yards and scores 2 touchdowns, he's the guy.
If he plays week 1.
Right. But my point is that he's the guy if he does that. If Cam Akers does that in game 1, he's the guy. If they both just are terrible, then that's what's going to happen. It's just going to be a split. So I feel like it's going to be a split until one of these two breaks out. And it's kind of a race to see which one does, because I don't think they like either one of them more than the other.
Right. Yeah. I mean, the Rams had 401 carries last season.
Yeah.
I think that number is going to be around the same this year.
Yeah.
That leaves 150 carries for Cam Akers?
Yeah, 150, 160 for both of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, and then there's Malcolm Brown, too.
There's 320 together, and then there's 80 for Malcolm Brown and John Kelly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's going to be disgusting.
Right.
But
It'll
it's
be
worth
gross.
to me, like for Daryl Henderson, it's in the 11th, 12th round, 10th, 11th, 12th round. It's worth
I'd rather take the risk. Yeah.
the risk there instead of Cam Akers, who you just don't know. Like you're taking a very large risk. For fantasy football, it's all about calculated risks.
And it's not like the Rams, according to PPF.
Yeah.
PFF.
PPF.
Pro Football.
You tried.
They have the
You freaking tried.
they have the 25th ranked offensive line going into the 2020 football season. So
Yeah.
it's not exactly a great offensive line.
Yeah. I mean, it's
For a rookie running back.
You know, it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough for the Rams to figure that out.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I would take Daryl Henderson later rounds and then hope for the best. I do like Daryl Henderson. I don't think he's innately talented, but like I've said this before about Todd Gurley, I don't think he's like ridiculously talented either. So it's like if they get their offensive line was ranked, what did you say, 25th last year? According to PFF?
Yep. It's going into the year.
Going into the year. So
25th.
they had a lot of like injuries on the offensive line, and that's what caused a lot of their problems.
They're also old though.
They are also old. But I think that like they're also a team that's very inconsistent year to year. So
sure,
like I'm not banking it on this, but I do think that offensive line is going to perform better this year than they did last year. So I don't think either one of these guys are going to be bad. I just don't think that, like for me, I don't know that either one of them is going to be able to take over. So let's just assume Henderson's hamstring is fine. Which it should be. That he's got 2 weeks, so it should be. If he returned to practice, he's fine. Which I don't think he has yet. But anyway, Henderson or Cam Akers week 1?
If Henderson is fine, he will start week 1.
Okay. How many carries does Henderson and Akers get in game 1?
Henderson gets 13. Akers gets 8.
Okay. So gross, dude. That's disgusting.
It is.
Really the grossest backfield in the league. I will say that. And then we wanted to throw in some...
Out of the Washington football team, I do.
Yes, that's true. At least you know Adrian Peterson's a solid lock for 3.4 yards per carry. We're going to talk about some of the QB battles really quickly. Before we do that, if you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone. If you sign up for Anchor, it's going to help you distribute your podcast so you can be heard on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, or any other major podcasting platforms, even little ones, even little podcasting platforms. You can also make money from your podcast right away with a no minimum listenership. So it really is everything you need to make a podcast, literally all in one place, in the palm of your hand. So be sure to download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Let's talk about some QB battles really quickly. I wanted to talk about these because I think it's not going to be a long discussion or conversation. I almost kicked over my light here. But I did want to talk about them because I feel like it pertains to a lot of the offensive scheme. Like it has, whoever starts for each one of these teams, it affects how their offensive scheme is going to go. So to start, we'll talk about the Chargers. Tyrod Taylor is projected to be the starter week 1.
Yep.
Him and Justin Herbert are currently in a QB battle for the 1 spot. I'm pretty sure it's going to be Tyrod, so I'm not really going to go into details about whether or not it's going to be Tyrod Taylor or Justin Herbert. It's probably going to be Tyrod. How do you think Tyrod affects this offense?
So, yeah, I mean, Tyrod's going to start. It's similar to what he was with the Browns in Baker's first year, although I think he'll be the starter for longer throughout the season. It'll probably be like Drew Lock last year where Joe Flacco started the first, 10 weeks of the season. So I think Tyrod Taylor is going to be the starter, and that's going to affect the offense. Tyrod Taylor, in Buffalo, he runs the ball a lot. Mm-hmm. It's going to actually, believe it or not, be kind of similar to Phillip Rivers, I think, where they're going to use the running backs in the passing game. Mm-hmm. I think Keenan Allen will be okay with the slot action. He's not going to throw the ball down the field all the time. I know there's some reports out of camp. It's like Tyrod Taylor's deep ball is money, but we've seen him play throughout his career. He's not, he's no Aaron Rodgers, right? Throwing the ball down the field. He's not a bad quarterback though. So I think it'll be good things for Austin Eckler still. He might not get as much work as it was with Phillip Rivers. Like, it might not be to that extreme. He'll just hit the open man type of thing. So like the running back, like Eckler had like, I think 100 something targets last year. It was ridiculous. Yeah. I don't know if he's going to get that quite many, but he will still utilize the running backs. They'll still utilize the slot game. They'll still utilize the tight ends. And I think it might affect Mike Williams in a negative way. Yeah. If Justin Herbert becomes a starter, though, expect that to kind of switch. Yeah. Herbert's got a big arm. Like, they might try to use that to their advantage. He still will use the checkdowns a lot. Yeah. They'll try to play conservatively, but it might be better for Mike Williams if Herbert was in versus Tyrod Taylor.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I would mention, I feel like either one of these guys is better for Mike Williams' game than
Phillip Rivers. Yeah, that is true.
But I think that either one hurts Keenan Allen, and I know a lot of people are still high on Keenan Allen, and at this point, like, if he's in the 5th round, just take him. Like, I don't give a crap. But,
yeah, I agree with that. I think,
like, he originally was going to be a bust for us, and then he's kept on falling. So I'm like, it's not even a bust anymore. But for me, like, I look at Keenan Allen, I think he's talented. I just think that the way Phillip Rivers played and the way Tyrod or Justin Herbert's going to play is going to kind of affect how Keenan Allen is able to perform. The only person that I think is really going to get good things out of this QB competition either way is Austin Eckler. Whoever wins the job, Austin Eckler is still going to get 1 million targets. So
he will, yeah.
Tyrod's going to dump it down. The rookie's going to dump it down. You know, so for me, I think obviously Tyrod's going to win the job. Tyrod has no standalone value for fantasy, so I wouldn't go out and try to acquire him or in a dynasty league or try to unless you're a 2-quarterback league, then whatever. But I wouldn't try to draft him because I don't feel like he's going to be that valuable. So let's talk about the next one really quickly. Sure. Pats quarterback competition between Cam Newton, Brian Hoyer, and
Jarrett Stidham, baby.
So I was listening to an interview today. The Patriots. I'm starting to get sick and tired of ESPN and all the other platforms. New England reporters. They're so annoying. Have you noticed that? Is that because I live in New England? Like, these people, Mike Reese might be one of the, I hate to call one person out, but he might be the most annoying person on the face of the earth when it comes to Patriots training camp coverage. Every single morning I got to see a tweet about who picked the songs for the day. And I'm like, I do not give two flying rats butts what the players listen to when they practice. Like, honestly, are there people out there who care about that?
I don't.
Yeah, so I
don't hate on them for doing their job.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. Whatever. I wish I could sit there and tweet out about what the Patriots listen to and who picked the songs. But anyway, so the Pats have an interesting conversation, you know, to try to overcome the loss of Tom Brady, which is obviously ginormous, a ginormous hole to fill. Jarrett Stidham reportedly had some form of a injury. I think it was hamstring or
I can't remember. I heard, yeah.
But he has an injury, and when he went down, it was a split between Hoyer and Newton, and then Newton over the weekend just basically took all the reps. And
and even when Stidham was out there, he didn't look great, I guess. Like, he had thrown 2 interceptions. He was
throwing interceptions. Yeah, he wasn't looking good. And Hoyer looks like a backup quarterback as usual. So.
Right. I mean, everyone knew, though, if Cam Newton was healthy, he would be the starter. And it looks like Cam Newton is healthy. So
the only question, because we talked about this before, when they signed him, it was looking like at the time before training camp had started and he started basically winning the job. I mean, I did watch a report on ESPN where they were talking about Mike Reese, and Mike Reese was talking about Cam Newton. He basically said that he shows up to the facilities before the sun comes up and before anyone's there. He leaves as the last person out. You know, that's normal stuff you'll hear in camp, but that he's been a good morale for the team because he's Cam Newton, you know, his personality. So he's fun to be around and stuff like that. Probably a lot more fun than Tom Brady, to be honest with you. But But anyway, so people like him, and basically because of his hard work ethic, he's becoming a leader on that team, which would lead me to believe that they're not going to outright cut him and then start Stidham or start Hoyer. At this point, that would just be Belichick being a moron. So, and he is not that. He's the greatest coach to ever coach the game, essentially.
Yep.
So He's going to start Cam Newton week 1. This QB competition for me, unless something drastic happens in the next 2 weeks, is over. So the real question is, obviously, now we know that Cam Newton's going to be the guy. What are the effects on the team? I feel like a lot of people are liking James White like yourself. I don't mind James White. I do think having Cam Newton should open up lanes for the running backs. Because like you look at what is going on in Baltimore right now with Mark Ingram and potentially J.K. Dobbins this year with Lamar Jackson as quarterback, when he runs all over the field, they got to compensate for that. And it opens up running lanes for their running backs. And I think Gus Edwards even had 5 yards of carry last year. So I think that it will help the running backs a lot on the Pats. The only problem is that we don't know which running back it is going to be.
It's going to be all of them.
Sony came back, so he might play, which might be good things for Sony. I don't know. We've been up and down on Sony all offseason. I bet he came off my draft rankings. He went back on. It's all over the place.
He fell like the 12th round in our home league. Ugh. Nobody wanted him.
I really don't know that any option on the Pats besides Cam Newton is going to be valuable in fantasy football, to be honest with you.
I know. It's so gross.
Like, I feel like Julian might be okay. I don't think he's going to get the same amount of targets. I want N'Keal to be really good so badly, but that's not going to happen. So he's going to win the job. Obviously, Cam Newton we talked about, he's purchasable. So I don't know if you have any thoughts on Cam Newton, but we'll move on to the next guy.
Yeah, we can just move on.
So the Bears obviously have Nick Foles and
Mitch Trubisky.
I already forgot his name. So there's 2 different play styles here. Mitch starts. He's more of a gunslinging,
Yep.
What is that? What is that SpongeBob episode? Gunslinging. There was like
I don't remember.
Yeah, I can't remember. I wish I could remember because that would have been so fun to say. But anyway, he's like a Brett Favre, like not in terms of talent, but in terms of like how he plays. He likes to sling it down the field and make a bunch of plays, whereas Nick Foles is like the vanilla, I'm going to check it down as many times as I humanly can to not throw a pick kind of quarterback. So Nick Foles is kind of what the Bears need at this point in terms of just consistency, because Mitch Trubisky is the picture of inconsistency, I should say. So right now, just to give you a bearing on what's the situation is, today they essentially said that Nick Foles is inches ahead in the QB competition against Mitch Trubisky. And I also would say Nick Foles is probably inches ahead in other areas of life.
That is true. There was also a report today from The Athletic that said Nick Foles stands out while David Montgomery, while David Montgomery gets injured. So he kind of took away the shine from Nick Foles, but I guess he had another great day of practice, and it looks like at this rate he's going to be the starter week 1, which isn't too much of a surprise. And when we traded for him, when the Bears, I'm a Bears fan, when the Bears traded for Nick Foles, the expectation was, in my mind at least, that he's probably going to be the starter unless Trubisky has a really good camp. Trubisky was so bad last year that Nick Foles is just the complete opposite. Like you said, he's a much more stable quarterback, and I think it's what the Bears need with that good defense. I think that could be a good thing for Allen Robinson, though. Allen Robinson will be fine either way, though.
Yeah,
it's Trubisky or Nick Foles, because he was good last year with Trubisky, but he might even be better with Nick Foles with the efficiency wise. Yeah,
I mean, I think with Nick Foles, just like you said, based on efficiency, that would help Allen Robinson. But I mean, I think I think Nick Foles is better for the team than Mitch Trubisky. But I also think if Mitch Trubisky plays this year, I think he's going to be good. Remember the year he went to the Pro Bowl? I feel like every other year he's going to be bad. So last year he was bad. This year I think he's going to be good. If he plays, that is.
Yeah.
But he's still garbage. So it's either way. I mean, I don't think either one of these guys has a massive effect on the team. Efficiency-wise, an opportunity in terms of scoring for the guy for guys like David Montgomery and Allen Robinson. And even Anthony Miller to some extent. I think the efficiency would improve under Nick Foles a little bit, but I don't know how much of a jump it's going to be. Last year, they were 29th in offense. So they weren't good.
No.
If Nick Foles starts, where do they finish?
I don't think they're going to be in the top 20, but they might be like 21, 22.
Which is a good jump. So for some of those guys, that
could get them to the playoffs.
Yeah, that could get the team to the playoffs, but that could get some of these fantasy players, like Allen Robinson finished 10 last year. That might get him to 7 or 8. You know what I mean? So we'll see what happens there. And then the final QB competition, Ryan Fitzmagic and Tua Tagovailoa. I don't think they're going to start Tua. I think this is going to be closer than people think, though. I really do think that. Tua's been doing really well in camp, and Ryan Fitzpatrick has been doing really well in camp as well. So both of them are doing pretty good. I just don't think they're going to throw Tua in right away. I do think Tua is going to start games this year. I think you're going to, the inconsistencies that you saw last year with Fitzmagic and Rosen and going back and forth, like I think you could see that again this year. But I think there's also a real shot that Ryan Fitzpatrick starts every single game and is decent. But every time you give him the starting role and think he's good.
To me, I think he'll start
the
first few weeks, and then once he has a bad week, it's going to be Tua's team.
Yeah.
I think probably I'll say like first 5 or 6 weeks Fitzpatrick will start, and sometime in the middle of the season Tua is going to take over and he'll just fully take over. Yeah.
So if Tua plays, what do you think the effects of the offense are going to be?
I don't really know too much how it would be different scheme wise. I don't really think it would too much. Tua is still a pocket passer.
He's kind of like a I don't want to say Russell Wilson, but his game kind of compares to Watson or Russ or Dak.
It might be a Drew Brees, Russell Wilson type. It might be a little more conservative. But in Alabama, he used to love targeting the wide receivers. So I don't think I think Devontae Parker and Preston Williams might still be good. The only guy it might affect is Mike Gesicki. I don't know how it might not even change that, but if it is going to change, I think he might be the guy that gets maybe neglected a little bit if Tua takes over, but I really don't know. He's one of the guys that is a wild card for me, but I mean, just going off of what he did in college, he seemed to like the wide receiver group a lot. So he did take a couple chances. So I think it won't change too much.
Yeah. I think the only thing that I would say is that if Fitzpatrick has a more positive effect on Mike Gesicki.
Yep.
Because he likes to throw to tight ends. He's liked it since he was with, since the first team he was on, to be honest with you, when he was with Buffalo.
The Jets or the Bills.
And the Jets, when he played for those teams. And when he was with Tampa and he was on a stretch of good games, he was actually having relatively good, what do I want to say? What's the word I'm looking for? Good success with the tight end position. So I feel like Gesicki will get good value out of Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I don't know if Tua takes over the job, if Gesicki's going to get that same kind of response team-wise. As far as these guys, obviously we talked about Tyrod Taylor, Justin Herbert. We talked about Tua and Ryan Fitzpatrick, Nick Foles, and Mitch Trubisky. None of those guys, none of them are startable. None of them are pick-upable, if that's a word. Don't draft him in your leagues. The only guy I would draft of these quarterbacks is Cam Newton. The purpose of this conversation was to tell you what's going to happen with the rest of the guys with the starting quarterback that they're going to get.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that'll do it unless you have anything else to say.
No, I mean, I think we pretty much covered it all.
That'll do it for this episode of the Fantasy Champions Fantasy Football Podcast. Top position battles in the books. Next week we have mock drafts and other such content coming your way. Final week of draft content. So buckle up. Get ready for the season. Don't forget to check out our website at fantasychampions.com. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram. Buy the Draft Guide. Talk tomorrow or Tuesday.
Later.
Thank you for listening to the Fantasy Champions Podcast. Make sure you subscribe on iTunes and YouTube and follow us on Twitter at the FF Champs.